Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 8th, 2022 meeting of the Grafton School Committee. I hereby call this meeting to order. We'd like to open the meeting tonight with a moment of silence. Last week we lost a longtime Grafton Schools paraprofessional, Michelle Howarth. This year she was working at Millbury Street School in the 5th grade. She fought a brave battle with cancer for 20 years, and we are very sad as a community at her passing. Our heart goes out to her family, her husband Rich, her son Paul, and her daughter Colby. So a moment of silence for Michelle, please. Okay. We'll move into public comment. Is there any public comment this evening? Seeing none, we will move into general business. I'd like to welcome Evan Brassard, our town administrator. He's going to come up and give us a fiscal year 23 budget summary for the town. And it's Evan's first time, I think, at our meetings, yes?
Yeah.
So welcome, Evan.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You know, I assume you know everyone here now. Okay,
On the
Online.
periphery, met everyone.
okay,
Maybe not directly.
all right.
Cool. So, again, thank you for having me. I thought I would come and just give kind of a high-level overview of what we're doing this year in the budget on at least on our side of the house. And I know Jay has a more detailed presentation than I do. But I also wanted to give the opportunity for any of you to ask questions that you might have about the process or where we're at or anything that might stand out to you. So what I have up here, this is our digital budget book that we created for this year. This is our first year using ClearGov here in Grafton. And I'm on the wrong page. Hold on one sec. Okay, here we are. So if you're on the town website, you just go to the top left corner. It says fiscal 23 budget, and that brings you right over to the budget book, which has more data than you'd ever want to look at. And so you'll see right off the bat that we're projecting a revenue increase of about 3%. A lion's share of that is based upon a tax increase from new homes and other betterments that have gone on in the past fiscal year. Those are generally your new growth number is what we would call that. And you'll also see, a generous increase in fees. That is primarily driven by some of the larger projects and developments that we're seeing go on in town. We only capture $100,000 in that line, although the growth in that area is probably substantially larger than what we're projecting. And we do that so that we are always on the right side of the projection and not upside down. If you're looking at this, you will also see that there is a typo on fines and forfeits that I saw immediately before sitting down. So I will have to go back and correct that later. So we're looking at, like I said, a 3.03 increase in total revenue, which is just over $2 million more than we were anticipating last year. If you look at the expenditure category, you'll see other increases. We're looking at about a 4.5% increase over last year in total spending, with the lion's share of that probably showing up in the general government area as well as public safety. So if anyone's watching any of the other meetings, one of the pushes for this year is to add officers to the Grafton Police Department to try to keep up with the growth that the community is seeing in the number of housing units that come online. And so this year we would have a total of 23 officers, including the chief, lieutenant, school resource officer, and detective. So the goal is that by 2026 we would be up to 25 total staff in that department. So a little more aggressive on the front end. That's because we've had 2 retirements this year, so larger salaries that I can then replace with newer, lower salaried people. Any questions on kind of the general overview? I can tell you a little bit on the general government side. What we're looking at, most of the cost drivers there are either just like in the schools, staff wages drives a large portion of that. Also, cleaning up some things like the tree budget. If you pay any attention to the trees on the side of the road, they never seem to stop falling. So we're constantly going after things like that. And then I spent some time kind of revamping some of how we're doing preventative maintenance and other programs here in Grafton and try to get a little bit more proactive on that stuff. And that's primarily the largest drivers in those areas. Any questions on that area? So, obviously we're spending more than we are taking in. As far as the percentage gap goes, we're growing by about 1.5% more than revenues are growing. And so we're able to do that obviously because of the override that you all passed a while back. And we are trying, I think, very diligently to protect that override as a surplus. And so as it sits today, and this number will be different literally tomorrow, the projected surplus is about $1.15 million, which is right in line with where we were trying to be. It's actually about $150,000 to the good. Although I personally believe that number will probably be more like 1.5 million by the end of the year, which puts us almost a whole year ahead of where we thought we would be at this point. The reason why the projected surplus is smaller now than I anticipated it'll be is because we've projected tighter numbers than I think we're actually going to see. In the new growth area, you'll have different fee structure, all these other things will change. I think we're looking at a very positive year, but it's always better to be conservative when you're counting your revenue. Any questions about override or anything like that? All right, so now I'm going to just jump to my favorite page, which is this capital page. It's where I spent most of my time on the weekends at home playing with, because this is my baby. So you see that we're looking to spend about 1.5 million in capital, and a lion's share of that, about 1.17 million, is coming out of the capital stabilization account. And so capital stabilization is obviously the $800,000 that's included in the capital stabilization part of the override. But we also were able to, when we sold 8 Pine Street, we funneled $500,000 into the capital account to offset future costs. So we are trying to be diligent with the money in that account, and that leaves us about $500,000 of a buffer sitting in that account. So we're not depleting it by any means. Specifically to the school department, you'll see that we are looking at about $562,000 of that 1.5 million spending there, and I think that's a pretty good number. I think we worked very closely with Jay and Anita and took, I think it was the top 3 tiers of your capital plan, and we're able to fund that in its entirety, which I was pretty excited about. I think that's a pretty sizable slice of the pie. And you can then break apart. This is why I love ClearGov, because you can just go around. And these are all the other projects. One thing that is interesting here in Grafton is that there's $304,000, let's say, in fire department spending that is really fire trucks that we've had for 5 years, 4 years. They're all lease payments. And so they're stacking a little bit. And so one of the things that we're looking to do is restructure how we're doing debt for those type of purchases so that they're not saddling that capital plan moving forward. Because that's definitely something that hinders us a bit. Not that we don't need fire trucks, we just need to do it in a different way. And I think that's kind of the high level. I didn't want to, you don't want to watch the 30-minute version of this.
I did want to
This
ask
is
if you
some
could
minutia.
scroll down. When you scroll down and you see the requests, can you just show
Yeah. So
how you get to the list of the projects?
right. So let's say you're here and you want to know more about the
School
South
thing. Keep
Grafton.
going.
What's
Look
that?
at a school thing. Keep going.
I don't have as much detail on the school thing. I was trying to avoid.
Yeah, there's
that.
some. There you go.
So here's all the school stuff. So replacement of furniture, auditorium wall repair, roof replacement, boiler repair, tiles, screens, updating of restrooms, painting of doors. I think that's the whole piece. So it's pretty cool. It's all broken apart by department. I know that this is the one you would be honing in on. What's neat about this, I'm going to go up here just because this one I spent more time on than anything else. Well, it looks prettier, to be quite honest with you. So this is South Grafton Community House painting the exterior. And, whoop, this is a Mac. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just slapping generally at the button here. But what's neat about it is when we upload all of this data, you can now come and see, pictures of the project that we're trying to accomplish with capital expenditure money. And then you can come down and it breaks apart. Now, this is pretty boring because it's all just coming from one source. But normally those graphs would be a little different, and it gives you a little map if you're not familiar. The other neat thing, and I think this will work great when we do some capital for even school projects, is with one push I can move this project over to a project page where then residents get to follow along with each step. As dollars are spent, it will be updated as it goes. So it's pretty neat.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Amy?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you. And this is terrific. I haven't ever had a town administrator come and present some of the budget to us, so this is great. I also wanted to just say how much I appreciate how you present the budget when you're with the select board and when you're on different committees and you talk about it being one budget. And I think that's really important, and I really, really appreciate that, and especially the work on the Capitol. So welcome to Grafton, and looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. It's been a great, I think it's been a great budget process. Jay, Anita, Mary, and I, we met probably only 3 or 4 times. It's really easy, in my opinion. It's just.
It's easy when you have enough money.
Yeah, but even at the beginning when we didn't have enough money, because the Chapter 70 formula obviously changed, that helped us a lot. But even at the beginning, when we were talking about how do we downsize both sides of the budget, it was still, in my opinion, a pretty easy conversation, and trying to figure out how to divvy up those reductions and where we're going to go. There's no strife there. It just is what we have to do, and we're going to figure it out.
Exactly. Yep, and that helps when we have to have the difficult conversations in the future.
Yeah.
It helps to have the strong partnership and experience.
Yeah.
So that's terrific.
Absolutely.
Any other members have anything for Evan? Go ahead, Jen.
It's more a question on the ClearGov. I really like this website, and I think people in the town would appreciate it because they can
Yep.
access the material. So I think people like the transparency. When I click around, if I we don't have our budget fully yet, but when we click on schools, will it go into more detail? Will it get to that point eventually?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so I think the schools are going to work on their own side of the house with the software. This was a software that I was familiar with from my previous community that I just fell in love with. We onboarded with them when they were kind of in their infancy. And now they have so much more functionality. So I really wanted to bring it on board and do the transparency piece. That was the biggest part for me. But they did not have capital budgeting before, which is literally my favorite part of municipal finance, if you can have one. And so that was really exciting for me to bring online. But the transparency piece, that you can just keep clicking until you get down to a line item and see exactly how much money went into that line, I think is really important.
I think it is. So thank you I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So we've purchased our own license through ClearGov. That's what Anita's primarily been focused on for the past month. And I think the town, or the municipal side, found this as well. There's a lot of work on the back end.
Right.
Once you get in, I think it's going to be fantastic. We're hoping to have that process completed this Thursday.
Okay, great.
It'll hook up, so when you click on school, it'll go directly, or will we
I'm
have
not
to
sure
go
how they're
different-
going to be
Okay.
married, but they will.
Fair
be.
enough,
Yeah, somehow.
somehow.
Yeah.
That's probably above our pay grade. We'll
Yeah.
call our ClearGov rep lives in Grafton.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, really?
It's great, because
I know
if I
we
call
can-
her at 7 at night, she always answers the phone because it says Town of Grafton, and she thinks it's an emergency. So I always.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I usually just say, you can just hang up, I'm just leaving you a message about tomorrow.
Yeah,
That's
great.
amazing.
But, yeah, it's pretty neat.
I wanted to call the committee's attention, when you guys go in and you have some time to play with it in our copious free time. I love the capital improvement area. There's a 5-year plan, and that's kind of the next step.
Yeah.
As you know, I'm the committee's representative for CIPC, and we're pretty excited about getting started on an actual 5-year plan. I think the district has at least 5 years, if not more, that we'll be able to plug in and move priorities around. But if we can get residents to look to this as their source for all this kind of information when they ask these questions, even on our GPS, well, it's not GPS anymore, but our district Facebook, I think that'll help with a lot of the kind of misnomers about where the money goes, right?
Yeah.
You know, we're not buying, you know, tons of stuff we don't need. A lot of it's stuff we've needed for a while.
Right.
So, but I'm with you, Evan. I like the capital. That's my favorite part.
Yeah,
Really excited to see that too.
cool.
Any other questions for Evan?
This or anything else while I'm here?
You want to stay, don't
Talking
you?
about-
You do wanna
I do have
stay.
to go to the select board now?
No, we're your favorite committee. Say it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Got that on tape.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Evan, I think there's a little
I know. That's how I operate. That's how I got into this room, actually.
We
Yeah.
figured that out.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Absolutely.
coming in. What a
Thanks
breath
a
of
lot.
fresh air.
thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work, and
Absolutely.
this is exciting stuff.
All right, have a good night.
And come
everybody.
back.
You too.
I will, absolutely.
And
We're
invite
the
us.
best.
We're happy to come to you, too. We can always.
I don't know, do you want to sit through those meetings? All right, what are you doing, Jay?
I am just getting this ready for
Okay.
Ms. Kalo.
All right, so next on our agenda, we have the 7 through 12 curriculum report. We're welcoming back Ms. Tracy Kalo. We've missed you, Tracy.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I'm happy to be back. And I'm excited to be giving you an update in regard to what's happening since my transition to Director of Teaching and Learning in grades 7 through 12. So when you think of the Director of Teaching and Learning, it's really an umbrella term for supporting student learning in the secondary schools. Typically, though, you would look at a director in terms of certain types of roles. You would think that I would be designing curriculum with teachers, delivering instruction, helping them enhance the delivery of their instruction, helping them to create and analyze assessments, and obviously offering some professional development. While I'm absolutely doing all those things, it's been very interesting for me to learn that I am able to support student learning in some atypical, untraditional ways that I didn't anticipate 3 months ago when I walked into this position. So what I have been doing since November is I have been attending our tiered support meetings. I've been meeting with our at-risk students one-on-one. I've been doing some observation and coaching of teachers, both seasoned and novice. And I have been working with the assistant principals to embed an educational component into our discipline consequences. And so I'm going to start with that atypical role because it's pretty exciting and fun, and I thought you'd like to learn more about it. So I'm going to start with tiered support, and I'm just going to refresh your memories that across the district, every school has 3 levels of tiered support for student learning. The first tier is what they call core classroom. It is what your general education teachers would do on a day-to-day basis to support student learning. That might look something like seating preferences, graphic organizers, extra time, chunking, and scaffolding assignments. What happens if students are struggling within those supports? They are often then they're often then recommended for a second tier of support or some additional support. And that would look something like a directed study or academic support centers at the high school. If the struggling continues and we're very worried about students, we will then bring them into a more intensive support system, and that might look something like pull-out services or our student success program. What I've found is when I started attending the support meetings, and this is happening both at the high school and at the middle school, I'm able to kind of contribute to the tier 1 supports. I can help teachers, probably the most consistent thing I do is I help teachers understand how to pare back work for students who are out, for students who are non-compliant. How do we look at the curriculum and identify the priorities and make sure they're getting that instruction? I'm also helping teachers, I'm meeting one-on-one to help them modify instruction and curriculum for students who are struggling, and I'm also helping them look at using multiple modalities so that we're really making sure that that core classroom instruction is as tight and as effective as it can be so that we could hopefully avoid moving into the different tiers. And I want to tell you that teachers have been unbelievably supportive of this. They have not only embraced the recommendations I've made during meetings, but they have reached out after and said, can we follow up because I have some more questions and some ideas and I just want to brainstorm with you. So it's been a very rewarding experience. In addition to that, I have been meeting with some at-risk students. When grades came out at the end of Q2, I noticed that there were some students who had gotten D's or F's in multiple classes, in 9th grade and 11th grade. And so I sat down with the guidance counselors individually to talk about their caseload. And I had said to them, maybe I sit down and have a conversation with them to see what's going on. And what's the beauty of my role is it's a very different conversation as if I was the assistant principal. Because if I were the assistant principal, I would be sitting down and saying, what's going on, honey? What support do you need? I sit down with the 11 students I met with and I say to them, tell me how you learn. Tell me what works for you to learn. Tell me what class, what teacher, and what does he or she do that helps you learn? And we've had tremendous conversations. So I met with 11 kids. These kids didn't have any idea who I was. And I was so impressed with them. They were super forthcoming, super agreeable. And I'm gonna give you an idea of how this played out. I'm gonna use one example in particular. I met with an 11th grade girl. She was a riot. We're gonna call her Laura. And she was a hoot. She was failing English and history, but was off the charts in math and science. So I said to Laura, can you talk to me a little bit about what's going on with English and history? And she said, well, I don't like words. And I said, okay. I said, but you're liking science and math. And she was adorable. She said, I prefer to think strategically. And I said, okay. So let's go back to English and math, English and social studies, because I'm not sure I can kind of recreate the strategy thinking for you, the strategic thinking for you. But talk to me about the words. And I was able to get her to tell me that she loves to read, but she can't write. She really struggles with writing. So when she left, I emailed her teachers. And I said, we had a great conversation. This is what she told me. And this is a snapshot of a response I got from her history teacher. This is so helpful. This all makes sense, as she often does well in class discussions, but struggles with source analysis. One of her most successful assessments involved her creating and recording a podcast. We can definitely arrange for oral tests. And so what has happened is I've met with these 11 students. I've gotten a sense of who they are and what they need in the classroom. I can push that out to the teachers, and then the teachers are now coming to me and saying, okay, now what you've told me about Andrew, what can we do differently? How can you tell me what I can do differently in history to support the way he learns? And so it's been a very tremendously, I've loved it. It's brought me back to my assistant principal days. And I've gotten a pretty good relationship with a couple of the kids who now stop in and see me. And I was mentioning this at the SST meeting at the middle school, and I have a meeting with Roseanne on Monday to go through a list of kids she'd like me to see as well. So I'm really loving this role, this part of my role as well. What's come from my conversation with at-risk students is I think that we need, and I've already broached Kevin and Sharon about this, to start talking about some school-to-work opportunities for our non-traditional students. So one of the students I met with, let's call him Andrew. Andrew had straight D's. And when Andrew came to see me, he was very forthcoming and said, well, I just do what I have to do in order to pass. And I said, okay, well, thank you for being so candid. Can you talk to me about what it is you want to do when you get out of school? And he said, oh, I already know. I want to own an auto body. I want to be an auto mechanic. My favorite thing is my car, and I do this with my car, and I do that with my car, and he just lit up. It was like a different kid. And I had a couple conversations like that, probably 3 or 4 kids. And what that helps me understand is, how can we create a situation for Andrew? So now Andrew's going to be a senior. Do we need to have Andrew, kind of drag Andrew through an academic course load that he may not necessarily need? Or might we start to open up that pathway towards auto mechanics for him, automotive for him, excuse me, by coming up with some sort of creative internship for him his senior year? So Kevin loves the idea, Sharon does as well, so Karen Mealy, I believe, is being pulled in. So the 4 of us are going to start talking about creating some sort of school-to-work transitions for some of our atypical kids, which is great. In addition to that, I've been doing a lot of observations of classrooms and coaching, and that's kind of come to be in a myriad of ways. The first way, actually, believe it or not, started from the teachers themselves in the beginning of the year. Well, I should say November when I started. So behavior was a little atypical this year. I think the lag time may have impacted some maturity and some readiness to be students again. And so teachers were struggling a little bit with classroom management. And as soon as I started, I had 2 or 3 teachers email me and say, I have this really behaviorally challenging class. Can you come and observe what's going on and give me some ideas to handle what's going on? And so that was great. So we started that way. And then what happened is we had teachers, and these are both seasoned and or new teachers, who were struggling with maybe during an observation, the principal or the assistant principal would notice there was an issue with rigor or there was an issue with clarity. They would then ask me to come in as the resource to support teacher learning. So I would go in and observe the teacher. We'd talk about their rigor or their clarity. I would provide ideas. In some cases, I've modeled certain strategies for them. We talk about what to do and how to do it differently. I give the teacher some time to kind of digest it, and then I go back in and I watch the teacher do it. So it's been a really great, what I really love about it is that it allows me to get in it and stay in it, so you can see that there's real change and there's a real support for kids. And the last way is that I have found now, since I've started meeting with kids who are struggling, teachers on their own are now coming to me and saying, I haven't met with any of their kids, but they've heard that I've done it. So teachers are now emailing me on their own and saying, oh, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. Can you come down and talk to me about what I should do? And so that's working out really well. So I'm really enjoying being in the classroom and coaching teachers as well. So in terms of consequences, so I love this graph because I think behavior is related to all three. And I know our teachers, our administrators, and our counseling staff do an unbelievable job with safety and connection with students. Where I think that we could improve is our ability to create a teachable moment or a learning experience for students. I really think that adding an educational component to student misbehavior really helps them get at the root cause of why the behavior is happening and gives them an opportunity to determine what they could do differently. And so we're going to start with vaping. And I found the Catch My Breath program. It is peer-led, online, and free vaping prevention program. The intention of it is to give students the knowledge and skills to make a more informed decision about whether or not they'd like to vape. It is very manageable. It's 4 lessons, 40 minutes each, and the topics are it's your choice, addiction, quitting, and what's your purpose in life. The assistant principals and I at the high school sat down to talk about, how would we change consequences to incorporate this educational component. And what we decided, and Kevin blessed it, he thought it was great, is we would go from the typical consequence, which would be 3 days outside suspension, to 2 days in-school suspension if they would engage in the Catch My Breath program. I have since told Roseanne, and Roseanne jumped right all over it. She's already done it with 2 students, and I asked her to send some of the middle schoolers' response to the vaping prevention program. And I'm loving, the comments about, telling dad not to smoke are great, but I love the idea about how there are palpable strategies. There are so many different scenarios you can get caught in. When someone offers you to do it, you have to tell them you can tell them you have to go do something or leave the bathroom and tell an adult. And then the education around about how dangerous it is. It has formaldehyde in it. I didn't know I could end up in the hospital. So clearly the videos are making an impact. What I will do at the end of this year is I'll regroup with Beth and Jason and Roseanne and Tim and just see how this is going and whether or not we need to make some changes. But right now it seems very promising. So with that, I can talk to the more traditional roles of being the director of teaching and learning. And what I'm going to do is instead of going through the myriad different examples of what's happening in curriculum work in 7 through 12, I'm just going to pick an example and walk you through what my role would be. So I'm going to pick, so I think as you know from previous presentations, that we've been working on writing this year. Specifically, I have started supporting grade 8 ELA in an argumentative writing unit. And so what I would do as the Director of Teaching and Learning with the 8th grade team is we would look at what is the current curriculum design around argumentative writing, and then how might we want to revise that. And one of the things that I've talked to them about is the idea of being very intentional in our writing instruction. And so what I'm helping them find then is writing models, student samples to teach argumentative writing from, evidence selection activities. I'm coming up with graphic organizers to support coherence within the essay as a whole and within body paragraphs. There isn't currently a template to trace an argument in a reading assignment, so I'm going to give them a graphic organizer to trace that argument, so when it comes time to writing the essay, they have the evidence in front of them, so they don't have to go through the whole book. And then we're talking about having a little bit of more choice. Once we look at the design, we're then going to look at how we'll deliver that more intentional writing instruction. And we're talking a lot about making sure that we're targeting skills. And we're going to do that through some mini lessons. I'll do some modeling of some mini lessons in terms of direct instruction. And then I think you may know that the English department at the middle school has done a tremendous job of starting to teach in stations. So we'll look at some specific skills to address in stations. We're going to do a little bit more of peer conferencing and teacher conferencing, and of course continue with some small group collaboration. And then finally, we're going to look at assessment. And we're talking a lot about finding different ways and the time for more formative assessment so that teachers can have conferencing with students in stations. We've also created brand new rubrics in grades 7 and 8 that are now standards-based, and they reflect the district's progression of skills. And last but not least, we're going to create Schoology writing portfolios in grades 6 through 12. The reason for that is we don't have any data around writing, and data around writing is very difficult to do because you cannot buy an objective test. It has to be homegrown. And I'm a huge believer in the fact that the best way to trace a student's writing in terms of growth is via the student's writing. And so what we've talked a lot about is using Schoology as a place to house the student writing every year in a portfolio. And Karen Mealy and Nancy Athadis and I are talking about reflection questions, kind of being very metacognitive about it. So students can kind of, at the end of the year, take a look at what have they learned and what might they need to work on the following year. And then Cindy Engvall has been working with the teachers to create these portfolios and then to help the following year's teacher be able to access them. So we're having some great progress in terms of assessment. I also wanted to mention the great work that Karen Mealy and Nancy Athanas has done with grade 6. I think you may know that a skills progression for the 3 genres of writing happened this summer in grades 7 through 12. We finished grade 6 this year. This is our last meeting. We have done a fair amount of work. Well, most of our work has been on creating standards-based rubrics, and it's worked out very, very well. And Karen is so adept at Schoology. She's been teaching the 6th grade teachers how to use that to grade and then be able to create a portfolio. So that's been super helpful as well. I've also been working with math. There's a lot going on with math at the high school. One of the first things that I'm super excited about is that we are going to have a financial literacy class. That class is going to be called Advanced Algebra with Financial Applications. Students who take it, and I should have been one of them, will learn discretionary expenses, taxes, banking services, credit, insurance, and investing, while applying advanced algebra throughout the course. The department's very excited about it. They think it's a much needed addition to their program. In addition, and I'm very excited about this one, we are detracking Algebra and Geometry 1. We are only going to offer one level. Sarah Scanlon and I have talked at length about offering an honors credit, and she feels strongly she's going to be able to do that. She'll put it in as a summer academy project with me. And the thinking is that they are ready to detrack Algebra 1 and Geometry 1, Algebra and Geometry 1 simply because they are moving towards being worried about fluency and focusing more on mathematical thinking and conceptual understanding. And they believe strongly that with a standards-based focus, they're able to do that with one level. And I just pulled this quote from Katie Novak talking about how the inclusive classes have high expectations for all learners, and it is absolutely the best way to go for student learning. So essentially, the track or the progress or the potential sequence is going to look a little different going forward, and I put stars next to that sequence because we're going to have to add in financial literacy. So what you're going to see is where the two stars are, and I love this idea because I was not a math kid, I was a humanities kid, and I didn't have any options. Whereas when you look at where the stars are, your humanities kids now can take your financial literacy class, they can take a quantitative reasoning class, or if you're more STEM, you can stay with your traditional sequence and lead right up to pre-calc. But it has, it meets every kid's need and every kid's interest in a much more appropriate way. So the math department's super excited about this, and I think they've done a great job. As you know, the district has been working on equity. And what specifically is happening at the high school in the English and the social studies departments, where we have started is with the idea of sensitive language and sensitive topics. Teachers want to make sure that they're not being offensive. And teachers want to make sure that they're making everyone feel welcomed and comfortable. And so I know that Gabby has been doing some work with the English department, and she is also starting to work with the social studies department on handling sensitive language, whether that's in text or in conversation. The social studies department is going to go one step further right now. And Jocelyn and the department came up with 2 goals because they want to take a deeper dive. They're looking to include the narratives of people from a wider range of racial, ethnic, religious, and cultural backgrounds in the curricula. And they want to disrupt a deficit-focused narrative that's currently prevalent. So those are lofty goals. So during the first department meeting, I ran a protocol that helps them kind of articulate what are they excited about, what are they worried about, and what might they need. The need is on the board for you here with the suggestions. You know, the team was very clear on this is really important work and we want to do it well, but it's definitely going to be like peeling back an onion because the educators understand they don't know what they don't know. So they have some learning to do, and then they have to learn about how to make sure that their students are learning that appropriately. So we have great goals, and we're starting to kind of decide how to tackle them in a way that makes sense so that we are not overwhelming teachers, but also getting to the equity that we hope to. And with that, I can take questions.
All right. Questions from the committee. Liz has her
Why do you
hand
always
up.
Look, I need to breathe,
Well, I
actually.
was looking in that
I have a
direction.
reputation.
All right, we'll go with Liz first.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple of things that I was just hoping you could give a little tiny bit more information on. Talking about at-risk students, and you mentioned a couple of examples. One in the high school where you noticed 11 kids who were getting D's and F's, and then one in the middle school where the principal identified the students for
Yes.
you. Is that kind of how you see yourself identifying the students in the future because that worked so well, or do you see, is there a different plan for identifying those students who you consider at risk going
great
forward?
question. So there's actually a myriad of ways that we can look at students who would potentially be at risk for not graduating from high school. So we could look at their discipline, we could look at their attendance, we could look at their grades, and we do have software that does allow us to do that. The reason I pinpointed grades only is because I believe the high school typically every quarter will send out a list. So that teachers are aware, admin are aware, and the guidance counselors are aware of how kids are performing and if there are some blips on the radar that need to be attended to. What I looked at is a pattern of lack of success that could ultimately become a problem for graduation. And so I focused on them first. So that's why I would pick 11, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Does that help you?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you. When you were discussing ELA, you mentioned the template to trace argument. I didn't understand. Could you speak a little bit more? I didn't
Sure,
understand what that was.
and I probably could have been, I could have selected better words. I was trying to fit it all on that slide. So if you're going to read so for example, historical figures is one of the books that is read in the middle school. And as you're reading it, you're developing an idea of what you want to prove or persuade. And what happens is sometimes if kids don't trace that in terms of complete a graphic organizer in which they're writing down their ideas, the quote that supports it, by the time they get to the end of the book, they then have to go back through 200 pages to find those quotes and the character, and so that graphic organizer just helps them keep track.
I see. Okay, thank you. And then one more question. You mentioned the availability of honors credit for Algebra Geometry 1. How does that work? How is it determined that kids might get honors credit for that class?
So what Sarah, from what I understand right now, what Sarah will do is she will create during Summer Academy different opportunities for kids to engage in to get that honors credit. So she'll say, if you want honors credit, you're going to do this.
Above and beyond the
Correct.
usual. Okay. Yep.
Yes.
All right. And is there a grade qualifier too, or is just the projects, you think?
I don't believe there's a grade qualifier.
All right. Thank you.
Because they're really moving away from grades. They're really focusing on standards.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Graciela, I saw your hand.
Yes. So I had kind of two questions.
Sure.
Also about the at-risk students, and one about the discipline. About the at-risk students, I heard what you said, that you were identifying those 11 students that are you identifying them in any other way? I mean, because it can also be identified through the tier process, the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3.
Yep.
Are they also part of that SST process?
That's a great question. So essentially what I did with 3 of them is I put them into SST so that they would rise to tier 2.
That's what I was just wondering.
That's exactly what happened. So 3 of them were basically, and it was writing, which I can't believe, Laura, but it was writing. And all 3 of them were like, we can't do it, I can't write. And so I simply said, do you want me to get you a tutor? And they were like, yep. And so the next meeting we had, I put them on the agenda, and they're now getting support for writing. So it depended on really what they said to me. So it was either I knew I could do it in the gen ed curriculum by working with the teacher, or I would raise them up to the next tier.
And how are you tracking data? How are you tracking the success of the interventions that are being placed for the students?
So the tier 2 accommodations are being tracked every 4 to 6 weeks. First we're doing it by grade, and then we're doing by qualitative feedback from teachers.
Okay, so that's how whatever intervention is being provided,
Yes.
even the tutor or something more is being tracked through the SST
Correct.
process.
Yep.
And I guess that's like also kind of like piggyback on my question about the discipline. I like the idea of providing the students educational opportunities.
Yep.
Just to see, because otherwise just giving them a suspension just doesn't really teach them anything. But
No.
if you provide them with an educational opportunity, that's great. But also, how are you tracking the effectiveness of those? Like, for example, the vaping, the catch my breath intervention that you're providing them.
So I would have to originally do that in a qualitative way, because what I want to talk to Beth and Jason about doing is circling back to those students to see if they were able to stop. Because what we've talked about doing is if they can't stop, what do we then do next? And believe it or not, I found it's almost like an AA program for vaping, but there is this online program where they can have a mentor that they can reach out to help them not vape if they want to. So we're talking about doing that as a tier 2 if this doesn't work. So it's more about circling back to the kids and seeing how things are going, how many are actually stopping. That's kind of in the works.
So that's your plan. I mean,
Yeah.
I know this is pretty new, so that's your plan eventually to be able to track them and see how they've
That's
done.
correct, absolutely.
Do you have any other strategies or educational opportunities that you're providing besides the vaping?
Not yet. I have to do a little research into it.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because I'm sure, I mean, I'm not in high school, so I don't know how the vaping is.
I'd
but
like to find a strategy for them not going to the bathroom. If I could do that, I could retire.
Provide them more breaks throughout the day.
You know, when I was in high school, they had a smoking section. Maybe we just give them a place to do it.
No,
and they-
you're
and
trying
they
to
won't
stop
go.
them from vaping.
No, that's the classic avoidance that I get from teachers. How do I get this child to not go to the bathroom every day? So if I could figure that out, that's a good teacher,
More
I
more
would.
breaks. I wonder how if when they were having mask breaks, if that helped in any way.
I don't know. I'd have to ask. I don't have the data on that. It's a good question, though.
Just a little.
Okay,
I
thank
love-
you.
Students
I
to
love
go to
that
the bathroom.
vaping intervention though. That's very exciting. The vaping intervention though, that I was getting chills when you were talking about
Yeah.
that. That sounds.
Yeah, because we're just sending them home to vape. You know, it's an addiction. We're not helping them actually stop.
Yeah.
the addiction.
Yeah, they have more time to vape at home because they
Correct.
don't have to go to school.
You know, that, it doesn't really help any if you're just sending them back home. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, doesn't teach them anything.
I saw Laura first, sorry, Jen.
That's okay.
I'm fairly certain that is in our policy about vaping is the educational piece, so I'm glad to see them being married.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so very good. Thank you so much. First of all, it's just wonderful to have you back. This is a great role for you, and I'm really excited to have you and expand this. It's sorely needed, and I think one of my bigger concerns, and this is larger than you, Tracy, is when we're getting students in 11th grade who are just saying, I can't write. And how can we help them earlier?
Yep.
And what can we do about that? Because by the time you're in 11th grade, they should have been progressing and meeting standards. And I know, I was one of those kids who, like you, I was not a math and science kid. And when I got to 11th grade, I did not do well in math and science. So I don't fault, but I would love to catch them earlier. And I know your position 7 to 12, and we're working on K through 6, but that is a concern, and I just didn't want to let that go, because that really stood out for me. So I love that you're moving to the middle school, because we'd love to catch the
Yeah,
students.
and Roseanne is moving in that direction of coming up with an academic support center. She has really done a nice job of mirroring what's working at the high school. So that is in the works.
Excellent. I'm really glad to hear that. I also kind of piggybacking off of Graciella's, so at-risk kids, is it just at-risk academically that we're red flagging, or is it
So
At risk.
I red flagged
just academic?
academic because my role is instructional support.
Right.
If it is social and emotional, it's already been red flagged, and that goes through the counseling team and the admins.
Perfect. And then finally, the social studies, I love every part about that. If there's anything we can do to, I don't know what, to support that with trainings or curriculums or something, that's wonderful and has been, I think, a long-term goal of our district and it's going to make such a better learning experience for all our students. So thank you. Yeah, I'm just really glad to see you. Thank you very much.
Nice to be back.
Jen?
I'm just writing. You said so much great stuff, so it's just kind of nice to
Sorry,
like
I'm-
hear it all.
Good, I'm
And
glad.
but you can feel like you can see and hear like your excitement when you're
Yeah.
talking about it. So it's great. I think it's like you are made for all of this. The at-risk students, as you're trying to capture everyone, do you find that to be your ultimate role, or do you think it should eventually go down to the next tier level where it something that the teachers or guidance or something should be doing? Like, I'm not sure if you think that's your particular role, is to do the direct one-on-one that you're doing.
So it isn't. It wouldn't typically be something a director of teaching and learning would do. But when I see that pattern of, I'm going to use the word failure. That might be dramatic. What I'm able to do is I'm able to look at it from an instructional stance that an administrator cannot and a counselor cannot, because they don't know what I know about instruction. So I have to go to the student first and say, how do you learn? You tell me exactly what class and what that teacher does and why. And then what I can do is I can then so let's say it's math. I can then translate it for the English and the history teacher.
Right.
And go down and say, okay, this is how the student learns, so I can help you tweak English and history and your delivery of that instruction in these ways so that he can do it. I'll give you a perfect example. The student that wants to go become a mechanic. So I say to him, Andrew, tell me about how you learn. I'm hands-on. I could see in his grades. What classes he had? Manufacturing, 95. I said, okay. I said, so it's kind of hard to make certain classes hands-on. The only thing I can think of off the top of my head, Andrew, is what if I were to tell your teachers to let you draw? Oh, I'll draw. Absolutely, I'll definitely draw. I said, okay. This was really cute. How about Legos? Yeah, no, I stopped Legos when I was in 5th grade. I said, okay. So I'll stop with drawing, okay? So I email the teachers and I say, this is what I've learned about Andrew. Andrew needs hands-on. Hands-on can mean drawing. Next day, social studies teacher comes up to me and says, thank you so much for sending me that information. I pulled him out in the hall. I told him in the next assignment, I changed it. So he had to draw his understanding of the assignment and then just write a sentence to explain his drawing. And I said, did he do it? And he said, yes, he did. So that's really hard. That's the translation I can do that maybe an administrator or a counselor couldn't do because they don't have the background knowledge. So it is a small part of my job, but it's becoming when I mentioned this at the middle school today, everyone was like, oh yeah. So I think I might probably get another 11 kids at the middle school. But it's a very fun job for me, and I think it's not only supporting kids, but it's helping teach best practice
Right.
without being like, here's Tracy to teach you best practice. Do you know what I mean?
Because I'm wondering, is that something where maybe the teachers can start, like that would be part of their choice?
Yeah.
Maybe, so it's not just for that one student, like maybe.
That's
offering it more
correct.
So,
Absolutely.
for all students.
Absolutely. And I really have to tell you, the teachers have been unbelievable. They have really digested what I've said and either come directly to me or emailed me back to say, this is so helpful. Will you come down and tell me what to do here? Will you brainstorm with me about this kid? They have really said, one teacher in particular it was an attention span situation. She was like, can you just come down and tell me what to do? So we went through the delivery of a lesson, and we talked about what to do with his very short attention span, how she could support that while still run the rest of the class, right? So if she has another student who has a very short attention span, she's just gonna apply the same strategies.
Right.
So it's worked out very well.
I think it's great. But I think the teachers and the students are like the staff, they're lucky to have you in that
thank you.
role to be able to provide feedback. And also, I'm glad they feel comfortable enough to reach out and not feel like you're observing necessarily or you're not critiquing.
Correct.
You're just there to help. Talked about good practice, writing portfolio was good. The math. All right, so I remember having discussion before that you were trying to bring the algebra more into the 8th grade, or you were at one point thinking that.
Yeah.
Is that still the goal, or is that happening, or is that now changing with the different formats that you're going through?
I believe you may be referring to the fact that we're trying to get more students ready to take calculus if in fact they chose to,
Right.
correct?
Something like that.
That is still happening, yes.
Okay, because I know that was a discussion, and then I didn't know what happened once we went to the integrated.
No, it's still
Program.
the case.
And then the last one is, I didn't understand what the deficit-focused narrative, like what were we talking about?
So it was said so beautifully during the workshop. One of the history teachers said, if we are going to talk about African Americans, we only talk about how they were slaves. We always talk about the deficit. We never talk about what they did that made our society what it is today. So we focus on the deficit as opposed to how they have built us. And that's what they're looking to find more resources around.
No, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to know more.
Sure.
What that meant, because
Yeah.
it seemed to be.
I don't think I would have known it either until he said it so beautifully.
Okay. This was fantastic. I could listen to you do this like all day long. Can I come in and just sit in your office
Absolutely.
and watch you? That's awesome. I just had one thing that I wanted to say that it's probably not in your wheelhouse, and that is, how do we identify kids like Andrew when they're in 8th grade and could benefit from going to BVT? I feel like for years we've had this idea of BVT not taking the right kids. We're not identifying kids and pushing them in that direction, and maybe we are, and it's just not working. But it makes me sad that we have a kid in our district who wants to do auto. I have a girl in my Girl Scout troop that's at BVT right now doing auto, because she was identified in her district, and she went, and she's having a great educational experience. Why is BVT not taking a kid like Andrew? What was it that they identified that maybe he didn't even apply? I don't know.
Yeah.
But how do we make sure that the right kids get considered? Is, I guess, my question.
That's a great question.
I don't want anybody to leave the Grafton Public Schools. Let me be clear. But it's kids like that who know what they want to do at 14. These schools exist for that purpose, for that reason. And they shouldn't have to endure 4 years of, like you say, traditional academics when they're obviously candidates for a school like BVT. Laura wants to say something, but I put the question to you, Tracy.
You did. And I wish I had an answer for you. I do
is
not.
that something you could work with the middle school on? I mean, is it even in your
So
purview?
Amy, so a piece of it is I'm not so sure that maybe Andrew knew at that point in time.
Okay,
So
well,
a
that's
piece,
fair enough.
piece of it might be developmental. I didn't look at Andrew's grades when he was in middle school. It may be that Andrew was in a different place. I do think that Grafton High School, though, however, could change programming a little bit so that we are not just offering internships to kids who have good grades and have good ideas and want to try something, but also we're offering internships for students that might make a nice transition for them to a pathway that may not be a 2 or 4 year school. I do think we could do a better job of that, and that's really going to be my focus. I've already met with Fran Graves. I don't know if you guys know Fran Graves. Fran's all over it. So we've got a lot of people who are very, very excited about it. I can see you want to say something.
No.
And every time you raise your hand, the teacher in me wants to call on you. Every time.
Pretty much said what I was going to say.
Okay.
I was also going to add, like, Andrew may have wanted to stay because he's on the football team and he has lots of good friends and things like that. And we can't control BVT, but we can make Grafton a better place for more students. And we can work on, I think we already have expanded our manufacturing program, and we can do better, as exactly what you said.
Correct.
So that was all I was going to say. I understand the vote tech issues, and they're working at the state level to change that, but we're not on the BVT school committee.
No, we're not. I just didn't know if there
We're
was,
here.
if the school is providing support or calling attention to BVT for students who would be a good fit. I don't know if they're doing that. For years, there was this kind of very negative, we don't want them to come do the presentation anymore because we don't want to lose kids to BVT. And then, they used to bus them for the tour, and then they stopped doing that. And then COVID
Yeah,
hit, and it
but-
all kind of,
At least since I've been here, that was only done because we were taking away pretty much a full day of
Yeah.
instruction out of 180.
Yeah.
That was really what it boiled down to. So that was the only piece
okay.
I want to be clear about.
And I do know that Jay did, your goal at one point was to try to get, or you hired another manufacturer teacher, or I forget.
Yeah, we've doubled our program.
tried to
I'd love to do more with
Make
that.
it
That
more.
would be obviously fantastic. The more opportunities we have in that field, that's certainly, that's better for everybody involved, no question about it.
Can I just ask one more question?
Yeah.
Or a comment? I don't know if this, since I'm new to the committee, I do have kids in Grafton, but I haven't been as involved in they haven't had as much of a trouble, I guess, in school. So they haven't been as much involved in trying to figure out what their best learning is. But it sounds like a lot what you're doing is applying the principles of UDL.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So are the teachers in Grafton knowledgeable about the principles of UDL?
I think they're knowledgeable about more principles than they think they are.
Okay.
I think if I were to come in and say, we're going to talk about UDL, that would be a different, I'd get a different response
But if you
to
just
that
told them,
than if I went in and said, you guys are already addressing multiple modalities by doing X, Y, and Z. Maybe we should also pull in the ability to express our learning with multiple modalities as well. That they are very receptive to hearing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's why when I hear you talk, that's what you're basically doing. You're just providing
Correct.
the students with a different way of showing their learning.
That's correct.
If you're allowing them to draw, if you're allowing them to film,
That's correct.
those are all principles of UDL.
Absolutely.
Laura,
I am not familiar with principles of UDL. So could
Okay.
Somebody just.
so universal design.
I'm so impressed with you. I'm going to let you go.
No. The principle, it's just ways of different, finding ways of how students learn and applying the different ways of learning. For example, we're talking about let me see, I'm not explaining myself well, and then you're gonna help me out.
What the
I know what
acronym
UDL
is.
is.
Universal design of learning.
Yeah, I had it.
Yes.
Okay, I had it.
So a great way to describe it. So at one point in time, we were doing a lot of talk about it in terms of doing some PD around it. And so we always start with the administrators. And so I would model it. So the way I modeled UDL to the administrators to give them some prior knowledge and some background is I gave them a podcast, a video, and a white paper. And they were to decide, based on their learning preference, not learning style, but learning preference, which they would do. And then they had to demonstrate their learning either using Legos, creating a picture, writing a paragraph. So that models for them how do you design a lesson so that the expression is varied and the presentation is varied.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So you're not just doing reading and writing in
Yeah.
the traditional way or taking tests. You're just demonstrating what you've learned and how you learn through different modalities. and it could be film, anything you want it to be.
And the more
basically.
choice you give them, the better.
The more
As
choice,
opposed
yeah.
to forcing them into a particular medium.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely hear that at home.
Yeah, I think we've been moving towards that.
I have 5 choices and I hate them all. Why don't you ask the teacher if you can do something else? You can figure out which one that was. All right, so does anybody else have anything for Tracy? Thank you again so much.
Thank you for having me. It's nice
Come
to
back.
see you.
Can we have you twice a year?
Of course, absolutely.
We learn so much when Tracy comes to our meetings.
Thank you, Tracy.
Oh, you should stay. We're gonna do the calendar next. Part,
I'll have Jay fill me in tomorrow.
part 3.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Do you want to say anything, Jay?
Sure, I just want to speak to what's up on the screen. So this is the latest iteration of the calendar. Between the last time we met in this meeting, 3 changes took place, are highlighted on the right-hand side. That early release day was moved from the 31st to the 26th of October. We took the parent conference day, which was originally in early December. We put that on November 8th, which is Election Day. And 12/22 was made into a full school day. That previously was a day off. And those changes helped move our last day without snow days to June 14th. That's all I have to say.
I would like to take a motion before we discuss.
Madam,
Do that?
Madam
Yes.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Grafton Public Schools 2022-2023 calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Liz?
Jay, I just have one question that I'm hoping, if you have an answer to this, it might save you some calls and questions when people don't see it.
I'm hopeful.
The October date, is there a way to just move that up so that the October 31st can be on the last line? So you have the blank line above
Yeah.
October 3, 4, 5, 6, 7?
Yep,
Oh, that's why it's like that.
I bet you people are going to look at that and say, where's the rest of the month?
yep, I will
Oh.
make that change.
Okay.
That's why it was hanging off. I didn't, okay.
And then my other question was, so and this is just, maybe it's me not seeing something, but we had a previous draft, I think it was, the last day was going to be June 16th. And then we took off December 22nd. So did we get another day somewhere to move it back to the
Yeah,
14th?
It was,
What am I missing?
I think it was actually your very good idea of moving that conference day in
Oh, because
December. That was a
that
no-school
was-
day, to the 8th, of November, which we had as a no-school day.
Okay.
So that
So-
freed up a day.
Okay, I see it now. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little hard to see on the
I-
screen. The blue is a little hard.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Sorry,
Because we
Bill.
had 2 days up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I see how that, I was looking at trying to compare 3 different drafts and, okay.
I will be dismissing my children early on October 31st.
You can do whatever you want.
Hey, you took that off the,
All right, we're not gonna do
No,
it.
I just said, but both my drives say the 31st, so is that the
Yeah.
one we're going with? Like
This is the one we're going with here.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
have 31st
The
first
one
here
on the-
and the 31st here.
Yeah, I know. It's the wrong one in the drive. Just make sure you print the right one, Jay. The one in the drive and the one in our packet still has the 31st. You can hang that up in your kitchen.
Just kidding, my kids are getting home early.
So I will clean this up, and once I do, I will put it out and share it online as well.
And the teachers, I just wanted to circle back with the conference day. You did circle back to the teachers. I'm using circle back twice. You did talk to the teachers and ask them how they felt about it, and it was more or less, sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
Right.
I forget what the actual
It's like 2/3 of the
numbers
teachers were
but I-
fine with it. and, yeah.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, yeah.
I
If
think
not,
it's
a
better
little
to have
more.
it early. I hate to sound like a curmudgeon, but I miss having that ability to connect with teachers in November as opposed to December, and I'm seeing some nods from the audience, so that's how I know I'm right. All right, we have a motion and a second, and we've had some discussion. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Annabelle, what do you think?
I think it looks great.
Annabelle does not care.
It's out early no matter what. She's
She's done. She won't be here for
That's
this
right.
calendar.
All right. Anything else?
No.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Moving on to school choice. Thanks, Jay.
All right, school choice. So my recommendation is that the school district remain open to school choice in the upcoming 2023 school year. We currently have 118 school choice seats occupied. If the committee votes to stay open to school choice, we would open up to 10 seats in kindergarten. We'd wait about a month to see kind of where we settle in with our kindergarten numbers, but up to 10 in K. And then additional seats in other grade levels if enrollment allows. Again, this is one of the best fiscal decisions, maybe one of the best overall decisions, I believe, that we have made in the last decade. We've brought in a little over $5 million in the last 8 years through school choice. And we have stayed true to what we said, that depending on the individual grade level, we were aiming to have about 10 students in every grade level, K through 12. And when you bring in only 10 students, again, you're not turning the heat up, you're not investing in new staff. It works beautifully. A few of the, well, this senior class has 15. That was like a small bubble class for us. In grades K1 and 2, those are very much connected to COVID. We had some openings, and just with everything going on, I think you can all understand we just weren't looking to add. So there's some capacity in grade 2. Would be grade 3 next year. So we could fill in some spots. We'll take a look at that and not be in any big rush. We've always, since the day we started school choice, that we get calls all the time. This year has been just off the charts. I must have had I bet I've had 40 emails in the last 4 days just about school choice. I heard you do it, when, what's the process, et cetera. It's the only topic that I have a prepared paragraph that I typically just send back because I get it so often throughout the year. So that's all I have on school choice. I'm happy to answer any questions people have.
Graciela.
You say you get like 40 emails. You got 40 emails about school choice so far, right?
Every single day we get calls and emails.
What do they have reasons? Are they coming from some school districts?
Yeah, they're always coming from school districts.
Yeah, I know they are, but I mean
no-
like specific school districts.
No, Northbridge is probably the most prominent, but it's not like, I looked today actually to see what percentage was, and I didn't break it all down. Maybe 10-15%, but they were all over the place.
And are
Every
they-
neighborhood, every town that borders us, even some further out, a couple towns out where you think they wouldn't drive here. Boylston was pretty big.
Could it be related to staffing, like
Could be. It
parent
seems to-
teachers? No.
I mean, we've been very involved in this for 8 years, and I've never seen a pattern. Once in a while, you get one when a town is going through a really tough budget year. I'll get more calls about it. But then there's a giant gap between the number of calls of interest in actually doing it.
So there's like no pattern, special education
No.
services.
No pattern whatsoever. I can say that the most constant thing is the parents, because they have to drive the students to and from school every single day, they are consistently very passionate about education. And that's been a pause.
That's a very
That has-
positive.
99 times out of 100, that's been the case. Like a true passion for it. I'll even get calls saying, my child's in 7th grade. And I'm thinking about doing school choice for high school, like 2 years ahead. And I've been looking at the district, and they've heard good things and just want to be a part of it. That seems
Maybe
to be
it's you.
I don't think so, but it's been impressive.
Well,
We do have a very good reputation as a district throughout the area, and yeah. We get some from Worcester too, do we not?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
but
That to
not,
me, see, that to me is a
ton.
haul. Like going down here every day. I mean, I guess it's kind of reversed, but still, imagine.
It's
you gotta
it's
drive your
hard.
kid every day.
in the
After-school activities are
winters,
tough, getting
activities.
rides.
That's really hard.
Do we do any follow-up? I mean, how many classes of kids have we graduated now with school choice kids in them? Do we do any sort of tracking after the fact to see
Like,
how they
What
do?
happened?
And
No.
yeah, no.
not that I know of. We started, we didn't, I'm trying to think of when we first started. We started primarily on the lower end and didn't dive in at the high school level. So I'd have to look at how those numbers kind of shake out.
Liz.
On the previous slide, did you say you were adding 10 in kindergarten?
Yes.
If approved, okay. Do we have our enrollment yet for
No,
kindergarten? We
that-
haven't,
that's,
so
yeah,
it's just a
maybe I
projection.
didn't say it, but I usually.
Enrollment and I see you say if enrollment and
Yeah, so we go through the
it's
process,
contingent.
they'll have their registration, and then we'll take a look at where our
Okay.
numbers are. We typically wouldn't, I don't think there's been a year I've started off with 10. We usually might say like 3 seats at each school, and then see how then we have the lottery, we have a wait list, and then come end of July, beginning of August, we relook. And we always have a waiting list a mile long, like that's not an issue. And then if in mid-August we make calls, we could fill additional seats if they're available.
Great. And you need a vote from us, Jay? Is that
I
correct?
do. The default by the state is that unless a district votes and tells the state they're a yes, the default is no. That's why every year I have to get a yes vote.
I'll take a motion.
Go ahead. I make a motion to recommend the district to remain open to school choice for 2022, 2023.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
District update.
All right. In the good news category, the Grafton Robotics, once again, that team from the high school participated this past weekend at Southern New England VEX Regional in Framingham. They won the Create Award and they qualified to participate in the World's competition in Dallas, Texas, May 5th through the 7th. The team is made up of all juniors, and the team is coached by Patty Renner. I'm sorry, I always do that. Patty Keller, our high school librarian. I've asked the team, with the committee's blessing, to come and present and speak on the 22nd. And if you're good with that, they will be
Only
here.
if they
They're
bring the
already
robot.
excited.
They have
Oh
to
yeah,
they have to bring the
they'll bring
robot.
some stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyhow, that's very, very exciting, and you'll hear more about it on the 22nd. We have, you probably know this, but a lot of our GHS community service students spend time at the different schools. Every single school takes in a number of our different students. Annabelle, I know you participate, correct? Where do you go?
I go to North Street.
North Street, okay. So this week, Millbury Street is recognizing their GHS community service students who are all pictured and listed here. And as we do this for the spring, I'll be trying to focus on these students for each of the different schools. We could not have better kids in the district. Annabelle's a perfect example, but when Kristen and I go in and visit the schools, the students are working with kids, they're doing little projects, they're all over the place. I think the kids look to them, our seniors, as teachers, if you will, and role models. It's just an awesome program. So I just wanted to share that with you this week. They're highlighting at Millbury Street. And then transition to optional masking, wanted to give you a quick update. Obviously, we enacted the change on March 2nd. We currently have about 10 to 20% of students and staff wearing masks. I said it's probably 10 to 15 based on what Kristen and I have seen the last couple days in the schools. We've developed, and I say we very liberally, Bob Wall and especially Nicole McDonald she's worked tirelessly with parents and with our specialized programming to come up with plans that are tailored for our individual medically fragile students. That's worked very well so far. We're doing basically the best we can and using our best thinking in partnership with the parents. I think we've been very open about that, all without much of any DESE guidance to this point. DESE is holding a meeting, a remote meeting on the 11th, and this is the area of focus primarily. Obviously, we're not the only district struggling with how to marry optional masking with our most medically fragile programming. So I'll be very interested, we'll all be very interested in seeing what that guidance is and then putting that guidance into place if there's anything we're missing. And this is simply my last slide, and this is just showing that we're obviously trending in a very positive way in terms of COVID cases. To think that we had 238 in a week is just mind-boggling. So down to 11 will be in the teens. When our reporting week closes tomorrow, I think we'll be 12 or 13, most likely. And I'll just keep updating you on this as with each and every meeting going forward. And I think that's all I have. Oh, no, I have one last thing. I emailed you about the budget timeline. That ties in a lot of ways to what Evan was talking about, that front loading of, let me backtrack. We initially started to do our own book and then realized that we were going to have a capital book. We were going to have the municipal budget. Every other budget in town would be through ClearGov. And we decided instead of doing both, let's work with the company, which we did. We had received a great discounted price on a secondary license for the schools because our budget is so large and we have so many staff members. We can't just be an add-on, we're a standalone. So Anita, for the past 3 or 4 weeks, has been putting in, it's over 3,200 lines of data into this budget. And again, once we get it in there, it should be great. And everything should fall into place, but boy, that's been a challenge. So what we're going to do is we're hoping to have the budget finalized on Thursday, produce the book by the end of the week, share it with school committee on March 22nd, present that full budget to the school committee with the book, share the book publicly as we always do. And then at the next meeting, April 5th, prior to the regular meeting, we would hold our annual budget hearing. That would be up to the school committee, either 15 minutes or 30 minutes. And then during the regular meeting, have a vote on that FY23 budget. I did talk with Evan today about the revised timeline. He is well aware of the struggles with ClearGov on the front end. He was totally fine with that. I reached out and talked to Mark Haddad from the Finance Committee. We were scheduled to present our budget on the 16th. It doesn't make too much sense unless we're going to make it very general to dive into the budget with FinCom before we've done that publicly with school committee. So they were great with that. He totally understood it. He's worked with ClearGov as well. And they are going to meet this Wednesday, and part of that, during that meeting, they're going to figure out a couple times to offer to meet with us after the 22nd. Mark couldn't have been better about it, and he was fine with it. And that's all I have.
Anything for Jay?
I have a question.
What?
Oh,
Go ahead.
how has the utilization of the tests been? Have kids been taking us up on our offer to provide those? Or has it been?
Should run you don't know the actual number, do you? We were at like 33%. I don't know if it has gone up much more than that.
We've actually had a few even stop.
Oh, we've gone in the
testing
other
as well.
direction.
Yeah.
Great.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
I thought maybe it would have gone the other way.
Yeah,
but
I put
no.
out that link when I
hoping that-
talked about moving to optional as a support.
Yeah.
We did reach out to the organization that basically runs that program to see, what are districts that have a high participation rate? Are they doing something that we aren't doing? The answer was kind of no. There hasn't been like a magic thing, but some districts they've got great participation and many have very low participation was basically the response. So we'll keep putting the link out there. We certainly have plenty of tests.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because there was no instruction given, I guess, to what, like, come pick up your tests, and my daughter picked up 4, and my middle schooler picked up 0, and I don't know what day they're supposed to test, and like,
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
I have no idea. So I didn't know if maybe we need to communicate something, or if we're just kind of not caring anymore. I don't know.
I'm hearing it in the, can't remember if I've heard it from the high school, but I've definitely in the elementary schools.
I would expect that.
Getting the message, and I think in the middle school too, I've heard it, but.
So we have, in the high school, we have a test on Tuesday, report on Tuesday,
Yeah.
pick up a test. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of any confusion, so we can look into that.
Okay,
But
yeah,
if
maybe
somebody
it's just,
needs an extra one or something, I mean, we've got plenty.
yeah, no, they
That
gave
is
out
not
4 on Friday at the high school, so that the kids would have
Certainly.
enough to last them through April break,
Yes.
so,
Okay.
great. And someday soon, maybe we won't have to do a COVID update, right? That'd be great.
Happy to stop whenever you like.
Well, stopping it isn't gonna make it go away, but. Okay, student representative reports. Annabelle, you're up.
Great. The seniors are holding the annual Krispy Kreme donut fundraiser, which is good. That brings in a lot of money for the class. $11 for a box of 12 donuts. Also, Miss Kalo mentioned that had me thinking. My manufacturing teacher also set up a website. And he puts all like students' projects in there, like featured projects, how to do the projects, machine used, materials used. It's really cool. Like I like looking at it, and I'm even in the class, like just to see like what my peers have done.
How do we find it? Do you know?
It's in my Schoology. I can talk to yeah. It's posted in all of his classes Schoology, so I can like possibly.
Or, just steal some photos for us. That'd be fine too.
Yeah, that too.
Awesome.
Yep, and spring sports registration is open.
Ooh, that's exciting. And I think our boys hockey team is
Yep,
in the state tournament. Is that correct?
I believe
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I think it's tomorrow.
It's
Nobody
coming up.
quote me on this. I think it's tomorrow
I think you're right.
afternoon in Worcester.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to buy your tickets in advance.
Annabelle, can I ask you, how was the mask transition last Tuesday, Wednesday?
It was, I was actually surprised almost by how many people weren't wearing their masks. It was like refreshing almost to see how many people weren't. After lunch, I'm like, I like go to put my mask on and I don't need it. But I like seeing everyone's faces. It's nice.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Prom?
Prom is May 7th. Very exciting at the DCU Center.
Oh, it is. That is where it is. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. How bad is your senioritis right now?
It's getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Getting
as the
there.
college applications come back. It's,
My students, I see it in April. April's like the worst. And then it doesn't get better.
good to know.
All right. Thank you, Annabelle.
Thank you.
Okay, running a little bit behind, but that's all right. Future agenda planning, Jay gave us a different, so the one in your packet is not right. It's this one now.
Yeah, and that simply reflects what I talked about in
Yep.
terms of the timeline.
I did want to ask about, so was Kevin gonna come back and do a school update later? Because he didn't really do that, right? But then I see he's on again for handbook.
It's on there. Oh, no, it's late. Sorry, no.
Yeah, he didn't do it, so.
Yeah, when do you want him back?
Well, not the 22nd. Let's see. Maybe the 26th? Of April, sorry.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
That's usually, the summer program and special ed's usually a lot for
Is
it.
it?
I think so.
Well, couldn't he just, so usually the school update used to be in June from the high school anyway, so couldn't we just have him come on the 24th and have him,
Do we
Yep.
want to
Just
just
do
have him
it
do the
all.
update then?
and just
Okay.
let him know he needs to be
This time he has to do the update.
brief?
Okay.
Yeah, I would encourage some brevity there.
It's gonna just be all, yeah, I think that makes sense, rather than making him,
Yeah.
I have,
Yeah, go ahead.
at one point, can we have Gabby brought back?
Yep.
And I'm just interested to see how her year has been and any progress.
You bet.
You want to meet with her and figure out when would
Yeah.
work? Okay.
Well, Janet's gonna have to be before the 24th.
I know.
She's gonna come in the audience.
I was thinking when it would happen, but but I still think it's good to hear.
Yep. Does anybody else have anything that they think is missing, or we're coming down to the end of the year, so we don't have a lot of time left?
I know we haven't in a couple of years, but we used to have the PTG and the PTO report. I think sometimes they would tag along with, schools, the lower elementary schools. I don't think they came last year. I don't know if that was because they didn't want to come or because it was virtual or what, but
I
don't
think
know if we
we
need to-
had moved away from it. I was chair those 2 years, but
Uh-huh.
they didn't come, and we just moved away from it because we changed the way we did the school presentations.
oh, okay.
You know, because we used to have them individually. Now that we have the two
I
together.
mean, the two
Oh, I
PTOs
see.
could come.
Okay, so it's
Um,
a lot of information.
I mean, if they want to send us like a summary, it doesn't necessarily have to be a presentation. They could send us a summary of their activities for the year. And we could recognize them at the top of the meeting the way we do with like the robotics team when they come in. You know what I'm
I
saying?
think that works.
I don't know, I think if we're gonna do it, I would say either invite them or not invite them, so I'm fine with not inviting them if sounds like we have reason not to.
Well, if
We have too much to
Huh?
talk
I think
about.
recognizing.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. We're recognizing their work. We're not necessarily, because they don't fall under us at all. There's no
I know.
responsibility. I know you know, but I'm just saying, like, it would be odd for us to have them come in at the level of a school report.
What if we ask Julie and Doreen to highlight, because it's curriculum based, right? Like, do we want to know what enrichment that they did, or how are they helping our curriculum? I mean, they don't fall under us, but they raise a ton of money for the districts that we wouldn't be able to do a lot of our programming in the lower elementaries without them, right? So I think we probably moved away from it too because of so many of us know, like, but I think that it might not be bad to ask Doreen and Julie to maybe just put it in because it's part of their curriculum, and they wouldn't get them upper elementary school, so I understand that, but maybe we can ask Steve and Joanne to fold it in next year or
Yeah.
something.
Throw a
Because they're
slide
just
in.
getting their
Yeah.
curriculums back, right? I saw the first field trip today at North Street for the first time. But maybe just recognizing how they've enriched the curriculum and, push any of the big events that maybe they're having. I know Fun Fair's back, I'm not sure what's going back on South, but maybe we just do it that way instead of having them come in and do a separate presentation, just to hear how our curriculum is being enhanced by the parent volunteers and family volunteers.
I like that idea,
All right.
I just had a different goal in mind, that's all,
which is
to recognize their efforts. That's why I was saying not to treat them that way. Not to treat them like as a report from a school. We're recognizing their contributions. That's why I was thinking it a little differently.
I guess I don't understand what your suggestion
Okay,
was then,
well,
because I
we
thought
can
that's.
talk about it offline, that's fine.
Like how we
Um,
recognize
No,
the
go ahead.
robotics, how we recognize
Like the
the state
nurses.
championships.
Yeah.
We don't get a report from the nurses, but we recognized them. We
Okay.
brought them in, we said thank you. And we, Jay talked about all the
Oh,
stuff
so
they've done.
Not a report.
Not a report, just to
invite
thank
them
you.
in
Yes.
to have them sit and say thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
That was it. But if that's not what you're looking for, then that's fine. All right, well, let's see. Jay, do you want to reach out to Julie and Doreen and see what they think?
Yes.
And if we can't fit it in that night, we'll have to. Yeah.
I'm sure they'd like being thanked. I mean, that's not something that usually happens to the PTG.
We can certainly do that. They'll probably be watching.
We can thank them right now.
We can
Thank you.
Thank you, PTG. Thank you, PTO.
It was really nice to see the pictures of the kids going off on the field trip today. That was so cool. All right, anything else for the schedule? Approval of minutes. I just got locked out of my laptop.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
I move that we accept the February 8th, 2022 school committee minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Motion carries.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that the school committee accept the February 28th, 2022 school committee minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. That's the last one, right?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Financial report, we have a warrant. Is it one?
I didn't see it in the pack.
It's in, next to you, the,
Oh, the extra.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Laura.
I'd like to make the motion to approve warrant number 36 dated March 3rd, 2022 for a total amount of $345,828.77.
second.
Motion made, seconded, and thirded. Any further discussion? I did want to ask a question about, page 23, the Vex Robotics. Do they have everything they need to go to nationals?
They do. There is I think it was a 1,200 entry fee, and the district's going to cover that. I'm sure they're going to, as a group, do some fundraising for the actual plane ride, all that stuff.
Okay.
But the core pieces we will take
Oh,
care of.
great. Awesome. All right. Any other questions on the warrant? Oh, and at the bottom of that page, I'm gonna email, Anita about that one. The bottom of page 23.
Okay.
Transfer.
It says middle school expenditures. I'm sure it's legit, but it's a little vague.
It's all the, yeah, activity wire, yeah. It's usually just for the,
Oh, it's activity?
yeah, it
Oh.
says,
Okay. All right. I read that as the line below. Okay. Anything else? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0. All right. We are skipping the FY '23 budget, correct?
Correct.
Just in time, Laura. We are now moving to policy.
We have 5 policies to present tonight as a second reading. So I'll go through these first. Let's see. I'd like to lump together the school committee policies, the BBE to BDB, if I may. It's their second readings, and the first one being BBE, school committee vacancies, presented tonight as a second reading. BDD, school committee superintendent relationship, presented tonight as a second reading. BIA, new committee member orientation, also second reading, and then BDB, school committee officers. Oh wait, that was a second reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Liz, can I just jump in? Because I had made, it didn't get printed. In BIA, I went to a training, which I'll talk about in my member report, and we had discussed on our policy subcommittee whether or not it is law. It actually is Mass General Law, and I noted it online, that you do actually have to take 8 hours of training to be on the committee. So I just wanted to add that in, and I had linked to the law online. So I'm sorry this didn't translate, but I wanted to make sure that was noted. I will say, what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to send your certificate when you're finished to the town clerk, and it's on file. You're not going to go to jail. Nobody's really enforcing it, but my thing is if you were running for reelection and somebody would ask to you, have you taken, I think that's a question that people could ask. So let me, while you're talking, I will pull it up just to,
Is that part of the law, Laura, that you're supposed to file it with the town clerk?
that was, I'm not sure if that's part of the law, but that was what was explained to me. I'll have to double check the law, but that's the, what was recommended that you do. But the law it definitely states, and I did put a link, which I was very proud of myself for.
And does it also say that I see you made a suggested edit,
Yeah.
a couple days ago,
Yes.
within a year, so is
Yeah,
that part of
that's
the law too?
Yeah, it
Okay.
has to be.
I have
within
the
a
law
year.
up right now. I can read it.
Thank you.
School committee members within 1 year after their initial election or appointment shall complete at least 8 hours of orientation concerning the responsibilities of their office at no cost to individual members. The orientation shall include but not be limited to a review of school finance, the open meeting law, public records law, conflict of interest law, special education law, collective bargaining, school leadership standards and evaluations, and the roles and responsibilities of committee members. The orientation shall be provided by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees Incorporated or any other entity approved by the Commissioner of Education after consulting the association. The association and any other entity providing such orientation shall offer every year at least 2 orientation sessions at no cost. Certificate will be awarded to each participant upon completion, and notice thereof shall be filed with the clerk of the city or town where the school committee member resides.
So, yeah. So I
That is
just put
part
a
of the law.
link in that.
Yeah.
So just to confirm, the new language that Laura's proposing in bullet 3 would read, any new member must complete the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, MASC, new member orientation within a year upon election, within a year, can I change that to of?
First.
Election or appointment to office and submit can I add the certificate to the town clerk, and then the Mass General Law citation of, is that chapter 71, section 36A.
Yeah.
Great.
And I'm gonna move that period outside of the parentheses, because I'm thinking of that, is that all right?
Yep. Anything
Okay.
like that, you can just do,
Okay.
okay?
Just saying.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Is everybody on the same page? We all know what we're doing? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to accept policy BBE, school committee vacancies, BBD, school committee superintendent relationship, EIA, new committee member orientation, BDB, school committee officers as a second reading, and with the changes for BIA.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right, next is IJL, library materials selection and adoption.
Wait, hold on. EEA should be next.
I'm reading through my,
Okay,
sorry.
it's okay. That one's a second reading.
I'm
so I wanted
looking
to-
online. EEA, student transportation, for a second reading. Yeah, I don't,
Yeah, we didn't
if
make,
you had any further,
no. This was just updating language.
I make a motion to accept policy EEA, student transportation as a second reading.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
now, IJL, library materials selection and adoption. We reviewed this policy on February 16th. The policy committee just recommended deletion of the last paragraph, section 6, which refers to exhibit space and meeting rooms. Not sure why that was in here, because this is about material selection and adoption, and we have another policy that covers the use of meeting space. That was it.
I had one question. It has to do with the term librarian. Do we still use that term, or do we call them media clerks, or do we use them interchangeably?
That is such
You
a
want-
good question.
So the librarian, we have a certified librarian at the high school. So yes, we still use that term, librarian. The media clerks are paraprofessional support staff in the preschool through 8th grade buildings.
So it should be, I would think, by, I guess the question would be, are the media clerks responsible with evaluating, selecting, and ordering?
No, that's the librarian.
Okay.
So we have one librarian for the entire district.
Correct.
Wow. That's a lot for one person. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad I asked. Anyone else have any questions or thoughts?
Well, I'm just think, is this too limiting then to, and I'm second guessing this too, just give the librarian the charge of doing that? Because I know in the elementary schools, I don't know if the media clerks are like Mrs. Cross and North Street, you know, I know that she orders materials sometimes, but is it expected that she gets approval from the librarian, or?
So they do work, they do work collaboratively, and then
Okay.
so the librarian does have discussions when they're
Okay.
ordering new books and things like that.
Okay, so the librarian's ultimately
Yes.
responsible. Okay, thank you.
I mean, that's done in tandem too with the building administrators, and, you know, it's not done in isolation.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Take a motion to accept this as a first reading.
I make a motion to accept policy IJL, library material selection and adoption as a first reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Last policy, IJR, reconsideration of instructional resources. This is a policy that addresses any requests to reevaluate any instructional resources that we have. It goes through different circumstances, different categories that, well, it addresses different categories that the challenges are usually based on. We made a few changes to update language, as you can see, replacing board with district. We provided a little bit more information about some of the categories, for example, so the categories being religion, ideologies, and profanity and obscenity. We provided a definition of obscenity, which corresponds with the legal definition. We also provided more information regarding the chain of command and how someone would address any concerns that they have about any instructional resources. Provided some more information regarding how the decision-making process would go. So the decision of the way we have presented it now, if the decision of the school committee is that the challenge material be retained, the school committee will not address the same or substantially similar complaint for a period of 3 years. We won't remove challenge materials from the school until a final decision has been made. Any questions on that?
So we're not the first. I'm not able to do it. Hold on. I read this earlier and I just want to reframe that for myself. This is, and I just want to clarify, this is not just library stuff. This is instructional resources, so this is everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it's material is challenged, and so if they have a concern, but it really talks about chain of command, going back to that, which is linked right on our website, on who they need to talk to, so we make it very easy for people.
Okay.
We did talk that we think the chain of command needs to be updated, but that's a separate conversation.
It's called the chain of communication. Does that matter?
No, I might have just been, no,
No,
it was
that
chain
me.
of, yeah, we just have to edit that,
Okay.
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay, so I see where we come in at the very end. All right.
Yep, we're always we should always
Always
be
be
last.
last.
We never should be the first person you complain to.
Nope.
And yet,
And yet, here we are, ready for complaints.
but if we're doing our job, we just defer people back to that chain of command. I mean, you can always listen, of course.
Okay,
People closest to the issue first. Right?
Yes.
Not that we don't love hearing from people. but-
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird balance.
all right.
Awesome.
Anybody else have any questions?
I think it's great.
I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to accept policy IJR, reconsideration of instructional resources, as a first reading.
Second.
We have no further discussion, so we'll move to a vote. I thought I saw a typo, but I didn't. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, great work.
All right, last one, EEAA busing, presenting this as a first reading. We just made 2 improvements to this and changed the second sentence that says did say transportation is fee-based to may be, because we've been changing that year to year, so we might change it again. And then the last sentence, we changed parents or guardians to make it more inclusive.
All right. Any questions? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to accept policy EEAA, busing, as a first reading.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Member reports. Laura,
I have a bunch.
I figured.
I'll try to be quick. One, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, so you all make your own too. I was one of 3 who got to participate at North Street Elementary School's Community Reading Day. Special thank you to the PTG, especially Beth Foley, for organizing and inviting. I had a delightful time talking to Mr. Adams' 5th grade. They came out with me with a lot of recommendations and suggestions, which I need to reach out and talk about. But I really, really enjoyed being back in the schools and back in the classroom, and they're awesome. They were just amazing, and we're lucky to have such awesome kids in our school district. My second update is that we had an ARPA meeting last Monday, right before our school committee meeting, and I am pleased to say that the ARPA committee recommended moving forward with a few school projects right away because we couldn't wait. So we're still planning on doing community outreach. We had about close to like 5.5 million. And we're going to use some of that money to do some things that can't wait, which includes our HVAC system in the middle school, and also to address those additional nursing hiring needs that we might need, we might not, but we're going to have the flexibility of the budget. So I really am appreciative of that committee. The rep from the select board is Peter Carlson, so he's going back to the committee, the select board, and I think tonight they're voting on it. So hopefully that'll go through, and then we'll have the additional money left. And there's also some website updates and I think some sewer issues
Yeah.
also, that they don't affect the schools, but just to help the town. So we're gonna kind of get those through because we all agree those are a high priority and really can't wait. But then we have a remainder of 2.5 million, and that is when we're going to do surveys and community outreach and maybe do something a little more, I don't want to say fun, but a little more fun than just HVAC systems, but we're still working on all of that. So that's when we'll really get some input. So I am so excited and really happy that was really collaboration between Jay and Evan. And Evan's been talking it to the select board and really updating them on the needs. So I think we should be very grateful, and it's going to save the town a lot of money in the long run, and our middle school is going to be better. So that's awesome. And finally, I'm sorry I have such a long member report. As you know, I'm on the executive board for MASC. We had our leadership meeting on Friday and Saturday, so I got to spend a weekend of learning with fellow school committee members in the area. And mostly it's more about how to represent MASC and what MASC can do for our committees. We had some ideas that we're still, actually, I'm gonna meet with Division 4 leaders at the end of the month, and we'll come back with some recommendations. But one thing that I might add to a future agenda that we talked about was, so there's a division for Native Americans and Alaskan Natives, and it's a lot in the Cape. They have 10% Native Americans, Mashpee, and they really talked about how we can better honor and integrate in the classrooms. And one of the things, they have a sign that the committee, when you enter town, it says, you are on Native land, you are on Indigenous land. They have the signs in all the schools. And I'm gonna dig in a little bit more. I actually did share that with the select board in hopes that because I feel like a town sign is more on them. But really thinking about our schools, there's been a constant complaint still that when we took away the Indian mascot, we weren't honoring them. I've always thought there could be a better way to honor them, and maybe this is something we think about. So when you enter a building, you recognize that you're on, the land of, the Hasmat tribe, or, So anyway, that was interesting. It was a lot, but we also talked about maybe doing something for mental health of school committees, or maybe how to work better with the municipal side of things. I think we have a great relationship now, but it took years of hard work, and that can all change, you never know. So some things like that, just try to help committee members. And so there's going to be, we talked about how MASC can do better, kind of letting people know their trainings. And I don't want to steal your thunder.
Don't.
So I won't.
Don't.
But I have to jump in.
No.
After you're done.
Okay.
Okay, because I have one more thing, and you'll like it. So anyway, it was good. And I really feel very lucky to be a part of that organization and hope to get more involved. And I'm glad that you are all involved and take the trainings, because a lot of people were talking about how they're the only ones in their district. And so we're lucky that we're all eager to learn and get better.
Who doesn't want free training?
A lot of people. I don't know. So it was good, but yeah. And I learned and some things about how to engage students a little bit better as well, which I think are coming down the pipeline. So
Excellent.
whew, I'll stop. That was a lot for me.
Graciela,
Yes.
what are you doing this weekend?
I am attending the part 1 of the charting course. What's it called?
You got it, charting the course.
Charting the course. I am attending the first part this weekend and the second part next weekend. So when you guys are all talking about the 8 hours, that's what I've been doing for the next 2 weekends.
Awesome. Thank you.
Get it
Bring-
in before
bring
the
snacks.
weather gets really good. So you can
Thanks. I need to know when the chapter 70 stuff is. I gotta.
Actually, I watched one. It's recorded.
Oh, it is in there now. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
a
That's the
couple of
one I
weeks
wanna
ago.
watch.
It's Tracy Novak.
Yeah, she's amazing. We're so lucky to have her for a field director. Liz, you had something.
not really.
You did.
Or,
No, but I want you to
You-
talk about your community.
What did you do
meeting. Yeah.
that day, Liz?
I also went to community reading day and read to 6th graders, but 6th graders, being how they are, did not have any inquisitive questions for me, but they were lovely and very polite, and it was a joy to read to them. And I hope I'll get invited back another time to get to do it.
I'd go
It's
back.
fun to be able to read. I spent several years organizing the activity, and Beth Foley did a great job organizing this year. I think she did last year too. And it was also very nice to be able to see a lot of the community members in person, and many of whom I hadn't seen in a long time. So
Jen,
always good day.
I'm on the SGS Principal Search Committee, and we met. We had tons of, I don't even know how many candidates, but there was a lot. And we have our first round of interviews tomorrow.
how many did you narrow it down to? Do you remember?
7?
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
There was a lot to go through.
Well, that's great news, I think. Right? I see nodding over here. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Do you have a report too?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I didn't know we could report on it, actually. I'm on the high school search committee, and we had our interviews today, and we made a recommendation, and hopefully we'll
How
move
many
forward with
finalists
that.
were there? You're not allowed to say?
No,
It's still in the process.
it's still in the
Okay,
process.
I can respect that.
Yeah.
That's fine. All right. So I have a pretty long report, sorry. I also enjoyed Community Reading Day. I read a book that was selected for me to read by Mrs. Foley to Mrs. Stafford's third graders. It was about community activism, and it was about a little girl who, after her grandfather gets hurt by a local trash heap, decides that she's going to turn that trash heap into a park, and she learns about how City Hall works and how, you know, people underestimate kids, and it was a really great message. Of course, it has a happy ending, and there's a dog. And the kids were, they were not so thrilled to see Mrs. Marr, because Mrs. Marr is not a police officer or a firefighter. However, when I told them that I am Jay Cummings' boss, they were very impressed, because the kids all love Dr. Cummings. And they had lots of great discussion around how to improve their community. Their big idea had to do with trash and kids littering on the playground, and they were going to write a letter to Mr. Wiltshire that afternoon. I haven't seen it yet, but I did tell them to keep me posted about how he can help them make sure that the other kids pick up their trash. My favorite idea was that as punishment, Mr. Wiltshire should make them do impossible math problems, which terrified me, but that kid was so funny. I was a panelist at a MASC seminar about, of all things, evaluating the superintendent, which I've done a grand total of 2 times. I signed up for the session, and then MASC reached out to me and asked me if I'd be a panelist. I was with a superintendent who has 3 school committees that he is beholden to, so that was dizzying. You think you've got it bad. And it was great. It was a great time. We basically talked about what the process is, why it's the way it is, why you shouldn't be doing numbers. And I was happy to help answer some of the questions on the call. So that was a great experience, and I'm not done yet. All right, fine, go.
So I didn't know Amy was doing it, which was a surprise that you didn't post about it. And I was at the school committee, and I had 2 people, including the future president of MASC, come up to me and tell me what a great job our chair did.
Oh, great.
So she was a great representative for Grafton, and it was really, it was nice to hear. And I pretended I knew what was going on, but it was nice, Amy. So you did well done representing Grafton.
I meant to post about it and I forgot, so I should
shocked.
probably, well, it was because I was so excited about Community Reading Day. All my posts were about that.
Okay, keep going.
All right, my last thing is,
mentioned it at some point. Didn't
What?
You mentioned it after a previous meeting or something.
Oh, maybe I wasn't there.
I thought
Maybe
you
I
did, yeah,
had
because you were
left.
joking about being
Yeah.
a panelist and saying, I've
Oh.
only done this a couple of times.
Because I was
they had,
supposed,
yeah, she had left.
yeah.
Oh, you had
She and Jen had
okay.
left.
I was gonna say. I
Yeah,
heard
Alan knew. Okay, so the last thing is, Jay did mention at one point, and I don't think it was our last meeting, because I think this happened since then, that we took our request for the South Grafton Playground to CPC, and I'm now frantically searching for my calendar, because we do have another public hearing coming up for that. Gmail. That's not right, is it? It's not. I don't know when. I will send it out to you. There's another public hearing. I believe it's going to be hybrid again. I'm hoping it's not. That was really difficult. When the
didn't
person
receive
running the meeting is not in the room, it's really difficult. If you haven't seen the recording, you should go back and watch it just for the, just for that. It was pretty funny. So they are considering our request. We did get it partially funded by the town capital budget, so we're looking for less than half of the original ask. So I'm hopeful that they'll recommend it to town meeting, and then town meeting, we'd be able to present at town meeting, and hopefully they would vote yes. That's the end goal. And then that work could hopefully be done over the summer, although I know with supply chains issues being what they are, who knows, right? That is my report, I think. I think I have everything. As far as correspondence goes, you all got packets. Hopefully you had seen all that. I just wanted to make a note that there were some other emails that I didn't send to you. I'll send you another
Okay.
batch. The school committee at grafton.k12.ma.us only goes to the members of the committee. It does not go to Jay.
Okay.
We can add Jay if Jay wants to be on it, if it's easier for bookkeeping purposes. But I was getting complaints that it's too difficult to put all of our email addresses into one email, and then somebody spelled Graciella's wrong, and it was just this whole thing. So I was trying to streamline it a little bit. We did have this alias at one point, but Jen was the only active member left on it.
How is that possible?
I don't know. But at some point, somebody set it up while you were on the board, but Laura hadn't been on yet.
No, I was on before Jen.
She was on before me.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
then they left you off because you
No,
didn't get the test.
There's just been a whole thing, and we actually had a discussion about it years ago and voted not to do that
Oh.
email, so it's fine. I just think it's important to have some sort of, like, to know who's getting those emails. So I'm glad you just said that, and to make sure we understand who's answering those emails. You know, I get, it makes sense, but in a communications standpoint, it's always not, well, whatever.
Yeah, it's just, it's very long email addresses for
It
people to,
is.
and the copy and paste doesn't always work, especially if you're on a phone, which a lot of our parents, they're only using phones.
Yeah.
So they can only send one at a time, which was causing some confusion because Liz was getting one that I had also received,
Yeah.
but I didn't know that you guys had all gotten it. So
Yeah.
it gets very confusing.
It makes sense. It's just good to know who.
Yep.
I don't like a group email that I don't know who's getting all the emails, you know?
Now we know, right?
Right.
Okay,
And it kind of came out of the blue without discussion.
yeah, sorry about that. I viewed it as administrative. Yes.
If you're moving on to the next topic, does the committee want to discuss that student advisory or push that off? Remember, I had emailed
I don't think it was on the agenda.
It's not
No,
on the
it's not
agenda.
on the agenda.
It's not.
And I think you just.
You want to real quick, just say what it is and,
I don't know too much about it. I was told that I think it's an MASC regulation, or maybe it's a state
It's a state
law.
regulation.
Yeah.
state
Mass
regulation
General law.
that the
Yeah.
committee should have I think it's a 5-person student advisory group. And they are supposed to meet with the school committee every other month. So the reason I bring it up now is obviously we could put, if we take Maroska and Annabelle, find 3 students, you know, get diversity among the grade levels and set that up for March, we could then meet again in May. So you could have 2 meetings. If you wait till May, we could do it in May and June, but June's gonna be light with, unless we can talk the seniors to into coming back. So it might be a small group in June. So if the committee wants me to, I'm more than happy to
yeah, I
work
think
on
we
that.
need to be, I think we need to follow the law.
Can
I
we
guess,
Put that on the agenda for next meeting?
I think what he's saying is if we wait,
I'm okay with
then we won't be able to do it.
going through with it.
We won't have time to meet with
Oh,
them.
there won't.
I guess the only suggestion that I had was to try to bring an 8th grader.
We can put it on the next agenda and you can give it more thought and you could pick the grades. I'll do whatever the committee wants. It wasn't even on my radar.
Go ahead, Laura.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we can tweak it as we go. We can start it because I actually think it's probably should be elected if possible, so that might start next year. But
Yeah.
I'd like to, no, he says.
It won't happen,
No.
us to have a school-wide election.
That's what I'm saying.
In a
So
month.
that would start next year.
Okay.
So if we started this year, we're at least starting it and getting it, which is more than we've been doing, and hearing some student voices, which is the whole point of it, is getting more than, I mean, and Maroska and Annabelle do an amazing job, but this is supposed to be more than just updates with us. And then we come and, you know, we can take we can take what we want from it. So I would like to just move forward with it. I'm not sure what we would, and we can, after May, maybe add it to a future agenda next year to talk about how if we want it structured in a different way.
Yeah,
Would
we
be
could
my
even,
recommendation.
we could even talk about the structure for next year in June once,
Right,
and then get the ball rolling for
Yeah.
August.
yeah.
Because, yeah, I think that's important. If we're supposed to be doing this and we're not, then, I mean, obviously, we want to hear from the students. Is
I
that
think
okay?
it's important to have it.
Yeah.
More voice, so.
I mean, I would honestly be perfectly fine if we met with different kids in May. If it ends up being different kids, I mean, that's fine too for this first pass. I don't, if we can't get kids to commit to 2 meetings, then I don't know.
I would stick with just 5. just so that they can see the consistency
no,
and how
but
it
if-
changes.
Right, but if we can't get kids to
Oh,
commit to
gotcha.
March and May of this year, since they're not being elected by the students anyway,
Right.
that we would get a more diverse perspective. What do you think, Jay?
I
I know you'll do whatever we want.
no, if we do it March 22nd and May 24th, that will be a prerequisite for
Yeah.
the 5 kids.
I
And
can do
obviously,
that.
Maroska and Annabelle they're going to be there. We can find 3 kids that can make those 2
Okay.
dates. I'd say do it twice, and then, as I think Laura or somebody brought up, then having a discussion about what worked, what didn't work. Do we
Right.
do it?
With
Do we need
Annabelle.
30 minutes? Is it 45? Is it an hour?
Yeah.
We're guessing right now.
Yeah. Okay. Is that good for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Good. All right. We do not need executive session. Correct? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right. Thank you, everybody.